At this time, I will call the Tuesday, March 5th, Whitley County Council meeting to order, and we will start the morning today by honoring our nation with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda would be John Myers, please. If you could introduce yourself and tell us who you're with, sir, I would appreciate it.
Good morning. I'm John Myers, president of the Whitley County Economic Development Corporation, and here to ask you for consideration of a tax abatement for a project that the Redevelopment Commission is working on out in Rail Connect Business Park. As usual, I put together a cover memo and attached copies of the documents discussing this, and hopefully can answer any questions you have. Maybe for the new folks that I haven't been in here talking about a tax abatement, since we have a couple of new folks elected to the county council. Just maybe a couple comments about what I say here in the memo to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. So first off, we already have a building under construction at Rail Connect that the council has granted a 10-year abatement on that 100,000 square feet. One of the companies that the owner, that the builder has been talking to has asked whether, well, that they're interested in leasing the building, but they'd like them to begin construction almost immediately on 150,000 square feet addition to the building. We had put a pad in that could accommodate that in the first place, hoping that it would give us an opportunity for something like this, and actually got that right out of the chute. So, we're looking at an investment of, which may be as much as $11 million for this new addition, which is a considerable amount of assessed valuation for the county and for additional taxes. When I talk about the amount of tax revenue that I've got there, so for instance, the $2.5 million additional tax revenue over the next 15 years, I try to take into consideration the fact that a dollar today is not worth a dollar it is 15 years from now with inflation. I try to use a high inflation rate, which is more conservative because interest rates have been low, but you never know if they're going to go up over the 15 years. So even though the numbers show a considerable value of taxes over time, in terms of that net amount, the $1 million of additional taxes net amount, it's probably got a higher value for the county over that period of time, assuming that inflation, stays in the 2 to 3% rate. So better to kind of underestimate and then be happy because you have more tax money later than the other way around. Second point here is because we have no lease signed, we are in lease negotiations. The hope is to have that completed here in the next month, but there would also be additional tax revenue related to the local income taxes collected, but none of that is figured into these numbers as well. So again, that's additional money that will be coming in over time, whether it's this company or whether it's somebody else that leases or moves into the building. I guess that's I guess my additional explanation. But any questions? And I'll tell you now, John, since we don't know whether the company's going to sign or not, we can't tell whether they have any special programs for veterans. But that being said, everybody in the community is happy to hire veterans at the moment with the unemployment rate being so low in the county. In particular, veterans, because they know how to show up for work in the morning.
Yes.
So, other questions?
I might add, Mr. President, that the redevelopment commission passed a favorable vote for this.
John, I got one question if the council doesn't. Whenever a lease gets signed, there'll be additional abatements for machinery, new machinery going inside this?
Possibly, yes, but I haven't gotten
We don't know that
an
now.
application in. I've been asking them, and they're like, well, let's see if we get this done or not. So,
Okay.
but I've been working with the IEDC, the state, just kind of on whether there's whether there'll be anything additional.
All right, thanks.
And we don't really have a good idea or any information on how many people this would employ or at what wage range or how that would benefit people in our county?
Correct. But, again, this is, I guess, for the building itself, so, yeah, I mean, yeah, not to, I guess we'll address that when we see what the numbers are and what the wage rates are.
In your conversations, negotiations with the probable tenant that's coming in, does that seem to be favorable?
The rates and, do you mean the wage rates and everything?
Yes.
Yes. So, it'll be a substantial company with 401Ks and health insurance and yeah, I mean, good wages. I just don't know what the numbers are exactly, that's the thing.
Any other questions?
Do we have a resolution number?
Yes, we do. It would be 2019-01. And I would also ask that when a motion is made on that resolution, that we would, that you would include with that the term of what you would like that tax abatement to be.
Yeah, and we're proposing a 10-year tax abatement, but that number is left blank in the,
I make a motion that we approve resolution number 2019-01 for a 10-year tax abatement.
I have a motion. Do I have a second,
I'll
please?
second.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Councilman Wheeler and a second by Vice Chair Banks. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor, please respond by raising your right hand. And those opposed, the same. Let it show that it was passed unanimously with all board members present.
I probably should have offered this earlier, but Joe DeTalia, who's the developer on this project, is here. I don't know if anyone has any questions for Joe, but he's worked closely with the Redevelopment Commission on other projects and has been very happy with the results of those projects.
Can I just leave your signature if you put it in?
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda this morning will be Sheriff Gatton, please.
Morning, Mark Gatton, Sheriff. This is Sean Martin, Jail Commander. Everybody get a chance to look over the annual jail report? Not gonna bore you and read every page, just gonna hit on a few of the things that are going on. First off, you've seen we increased bookings in 2018. We had an increase of 3.18%. So we averaged 4.43 people getting booked into the Whitley County Jail every day last year. On page 2, there's a typo on the bulletin below the graph down there. It says average daily inmate population at the jail increased from 116 inmates in 2017 to 224. That was supposed to be 124 instead of 224. But that increase came to 6.89% increase in daily population last year. Page 3, the highlight of that page really is the amount of incidents that went down for chemical deployment, taser, and restraint chair usage. 2017 was probably a high of all time there. Page 4 just mainly shows all the programs and services that the visitation room's used for. Page 5, the top, jail escapes were way up. We had 2 in 2017, and it went to 8. Escapes / failure to return to lawful detention. This went up mainly because we were putting people in programs that were probably in a little bit too early, and their addiction possibly weren't under control at that time. Jail classification system, staffing, and what Indiana Department of Corrections has said is the same as it has been for the last couple years. We have, and we thank you for it, we have increased to 19. Is it right now? We're at 19 full-time officers, so we're real close to what they want to recommend.
I think you're the only one who's got a copy of it.
Excuse me, Sheriff Gatton.
Yeah.
The report says 21, so we've lost 2 officers since this was done.
No, they recommend that we have 21 on staff, and we have 19 right now. And over the last, about the last 3 years, we've went from 17 up to 19.
Your report says there's 21.
There's 21, well,
find
there should be 20. We're down to 19 officers, 21 with me,
Okay.
including me.
Okay.
So sorry, yeah, we've increased quite a bit. Again, we're very thankful. We've came a long way. We at least have 4 almost on every shift now in the jail. In unfunded, some of the same things still, flooring, showers, staff, we just hit that, overcrowding. We really do need a medical cell. The increase on medical problems coming in from initial intake are getting overwhelming. We don't have space a lot. IT would be nice in the jail. One of the big things we'd really like, Sean's been looking into, is a body scanner. Sean, if you want to explain what that does.
It's basically an x-ray machine like they have at the airport. It's a tube that the inmate would walk through, and they are detecting a lot in other counties. Markham County is one of them. On a daily basis, people that are bringing things into the jail in areas that we can't necessarily look at. So, and it's extremely hard to get a search warrant if you have, even if with knowledge, if somebody's got something hidden on their person in an area we can't look in. So this is a tool that detects those items inside a cavity of the body.
And that would then give you your probable cause for the search warrant?
Correct. And we can take them to the hospital and have that done then. Just eliminate the issue of them bringing it in. It could have possibly, the heroin exposure we had could have eliminated that possibly, things like that.
So it could detect non-metal objects?
Yes.
It can? Wow.
It's an x-ray.
Marshall County is one of the leading ones around here with the machine they have right now, so.
Have you guys looked into what the cost would be on something like
There's one
that?
on a state bid contract for $138,000. So it's a substantial investment, but this day and age, with the safety aspect, it's a pretty nice tool to have.
Did Marshall County indicate what the maintenance would be on something like this?
I haven't had the discussion with them at this point yet. Certainly something I can give them a call and find out what it costs to maintain.
Would that piece of equipment be set up in a secured area or maybe outside of a secured area coming into the secured area?
Well, that's the problem. Part of the issue we have is a location to put
We
it.
really, right now, don't have a space for it. I mean, there's one possible, which you know the layout, would be back towards the washing machines. There's one cutout that maybe we could move what's in there now, but that's one of the biggest issues, is we don't have a good place for it.
I mean, I'm kind of just thinking out loud here, but is that something that Community Corrections and Paula could take advantage of, using that piece of machinery too for someone that they suspect that they could transport down there and run them through it?
Yeah, absolutely.
How much training are you gonna have for somebody to operate that? Don't know for sure yet.
I believe when on the state bid contract, when you buy the equipment, they provide you the training that you need to operate the,
You don't have to be certified or anything like that?
I don't know if it's a certification or just an operator's course.
Okay.
Program space, also the one visitation room, as you see, serves for all the programs listed, along with additional from attorney-client meetings to Division of Child Services, probation, and video court. So we try to do our best with a schedule, but a lot of times we can't accommodate everybody.
Hey, Sheriff, backing up to the mail, do you guys have a program now where they're getting their mail electronically, or are they still getting mail handed
No,
to them?
they're still getting mail. We looked into an electronic version of where a company took care of your mail. It was mailed somewhere else, they scan it in. But the price of that program compared to what we're doing now, we'd lose quite a bit of revenue inside the jail for commissary purposes. So I guess what I'm getting at, that money we'd lose. Right now, we get so much per phone call and everything. Well, this company that wants to come in would also want to take over the phones, which is going to affect our profit. And then the last page I attached was just some of the questions that get asked upon intake. And just wanted to really attach that, show you about how many people are coming in and reporting mental health or emotional problems or other things that are going on. These are voluntary questions. I shouldn't say they're voluntary, they're part, but we don't know 100% if they're telling us the truth on answering the question or not.
I don't have a copy of that for some reason or other. Well, people got to know about it. I'd like to have a copy of it. Further study.
A couple of questions back to earlier. First, on the mail, is there a limitation on, like, paper or what can be mailed into the jail?
We have a policy that
Do a policy.
reduces, yeah, I mean, it reduces what we send in. There's certain things we can't eliminate.
We
Books by mail, we have to allow mail order books to come in, things like that.
The Indiana Department of Corrections was also having an issue, so they made a mail policy that we kind of modeled off of and changed the jails to. It reduced the amount of photos they could have, which was a place they could put Suboxone in a liquid form and send in. So yeah, we've tried to reduce the amount of mail that goes back.
And then, in conjunction with the program space and the scanner, since space is such a premium, where are we going to go with that? I mean, the jail itself can't be reconfigured very effectively.
That's correct.
Correct.
Yeah, that's some of the headaches that we run into. We have a lack of space. It's just, the building was designed for 1987 issues, and we're adapting to 2019 issues, so.
And that's something that's, you guys keep hearing of, you know, whether it's with Paula's program and building or the jail, with the influx and the amount of people that are in jail and in different programs, it's going to be an issue both ways. It's going to be a very hard decision for you gentlemen up here. So right now, we'll just keep moving forward like we have. I mean, this is a report I have to do annually. And we've been, as far as back, I think, since '07, I can find they've hit us for saying we're overcrowded. And I'm just gonna get this out of the way right now, Chad, since we talked about it. The state has said that since '07. The state themselves' facilities are overcrowded. So Chad asked this, Chad and I talked one day away from here, and my honest opinion was I can't see how the state of Indiana could really fine us too bad when their same facilities are overcrowded.
And changes in state law have increased our
Yes.
county overcrowding. Okay. In my mind, the issue isn't necessarily state fines, but it's the liability. And is the building at all adjustable if a new structure is built that doesn't involve a jail? For these kind of things, can the building be remodeled in a way that the scanner and some of these other things can be put in?
I think some of the issues you run into on a remodel is everything from 1987 has to be brought up to a 19 standard on the remodel. So I believe that it all has to be brought in compliance for if you're doing part of the building.
And I don't think feasible, money-wise, I think the cost would be so large that it wouldn't be feasible to do.
So some of these things are just things you'd really like to have, but don't see a reality possibility.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, things that would be, make the job easier and safer, but we make do with what we have.
Okay, thank you.
Since there's 50% of the counties have a jail overcrowding, are the Sheriff's Association coming up with any bills to alleviate any of this that you are familiar with?
No, I can tell you I was sent about 2 weeks ago the most recent jail stats that the state has put up. And right now, Whitley County, after all the new studies, Whitley County should be one of 8 left in the state that is old as we are. There's more right now, but they're all in the process of either looking for land or building. So, yeah, we should be down to one of 8.
Well, some of the things that I know the commissioners are proposing will help some of this stuff, I think.
I have some apprehensions because other counties say certain programs won't. My other thing is if we modify the rule some, I think we can definitely do it. But to find people that are qualified for every program right now, I think probably this last year and a half, we've rolled the dice more with people than we ever have in everything, putting them on probation or at least sending them out to work release. So it's going to have to take an effort of every division to get this accomplished.
And some of the problems we run into now, we can't even find people that are suitable to be an inmate worker inside the jail. So the population is declined that bad that, I mean, we have a hard time finding someone to send out to work release, and they just end up rotating back into our doors because they either A, weren't ready to go, or B, we pushed them out too early. So.
Which how many beds do you have open right now, Paula?
Oh, yeah. I think we're at 82.
And that's not the fault of any of us, that's just
The class of inmates.
mates we have right now.
Mark, do you think that if the court system would offer more time as far as taking inmates to court, taking prisoners to court, do it more than one time a week, do you think that would help rotate the personnel and get them out of the jail? Maybe they don't need to be there, but maybe they can get to Paula or out to work release faster, and that would help with the overcrowding as far as the jail?
No, I personally don't think it would, just to the fact that the first court hearings are initial, and then maybe the pretrial will get a few out, this new pretrial program, but other than that, their court dates are set so far out, no matter if we took them earlier, that we have to wait till they're sentenced before they can go. Most time, we have a few on right now, probably, don't you, Paula?
Yeah, we don't get a lot of pretrial.
Why are they set so far out? I mean, what?
Because that's how full the court system is, or they have to retain their own counsel, or a public defender has to see them before their next hearing. I said, I know it's a large issue for everybody in this room, but I don't know, I'm not here to, the things you ask me are my own beliefs and theories on stuff, not a solution. That's what you guys are gonna have to work on hard for.
Then you sat through the presentation the other day. I mean, what are your thoughts? What do you think moving forward is, from your perspective, is going to be a good move, or what do you see as a need?
I knew somebody'd ask this. I don't feel that I've been, looked at everything and been educated enough to make sure what the right decision is right now. If I sat down and read everything and then looked the way we think it'll reduce the jail population, then I might be able to give you what I honestly believe. Right now, due to the fact that we're not sure what each program's standards will be, I can't sit here and say how many inmates we think it'll take it out of the jail. And I know that's not a great answer, probably one you want to hear, but that's...
I'm just looking for your opinion. I know a lot of times the perspective can be from the outside of the jail, and people looking at what's going on there, that, you know, we can really in our hearts and our minds want to help these people and rehabilitate them and get them back out into society to be productive members. And that's the best thing to do, because it helps all of us and it helps our community as a whole. So sometimes you look at it with a different tinted glasses than maybe somebody that's on the inside, and they're looking at the people, and not to be negative, but you're seeing a different side of people that maybe their intent is on taking advantage of those opportunities more than changing with those opportunities. So that's why I ask you that. Do you see the opportunity for the people that you have in your facility to benefit from growing from this if they've got the right opportunities available and not maybe just being incarcerated?
Yes, I do, Thor. With the right programs, I think we'll have a percentage of success. We'll still have failures, I know that. The big pipe dream would to be have all of the divisions in one big complex, but that is a pipe dream, I know.
Some of the, just to follow up on yours, Thor, some of that programming can be offered. You know, I know the Bowen Center's offered it up to do some of that programming at the jail. The thing we run into is, again, the programming space and the time to do it. So I think some of that, if they can do an MRT, if they can do some of these programs that work release has the availability to offer at the jail setting for those that can't make it out to work release, I think it could benefit them. There's, like the sheriff says, there's a certain percentage that's not going to help it, and if you help one or two, at least you're doing something.
Is this section of your population dealing with people that you would be comfortable in putting in a semi-secured facility rather than the jail?
There's a certain population that we have that, no, I wouldn't be comfortable putting in a semi-secured facility, but then there's a certain population that could be, at least given that opportunity, and then if they would fail, be brought back. It's like the work release program. We give everybody the opportunity to prove themselves, and if not, they come back. So I mean, it could be it's going to be a give and take, and bouncing them back and forth, like we do with the work release center now.
And the numbers in there, the bookings, you can see, a lot of them I think that might qualify be the failure to appears or failure to comply people that have been out. They may not have the biggest violations. Some people are as low as they can't afford their own fines, but they come back. Those kind of people, I think we could help get through that.
Yeah.
Or a minor probation violation, something like that. But as you can see, I think it was third last year, so we have a lot of people booked in on that.
Tom, you got any comments about that? I mean, you guys...
No, you guys are absolutely right, though. What you heard the other day is still at a dreaming session,
Yeah, I know.
and there is absolutely no plans, nothing. We're still trying to figure out what work out best for everybody.
But
And
that's
this
what
is-
you're trying to address, is what you're
Yeah,
talking
that's,
about.
and, when everybody's got their own idea, and we gotta just work through this and try to do something that we can all live with. Because there's nothing set in stone at all, we're just still getting fact-finding stuff.
So sorry to bring you down for the day, but
This is like a workshop. This is
You
good
just-
information. Good questions and answer session.
When you say that ideally your pipe dream includes where all departments are located in the same compound, what departments? I'm assuming jail, community corrections?
Probation, all that. That way, one, we lose logistically of how to transport them. I mean, we can have people that can walk people to other centers and drop them off. I mean, it would be a big, beautiful complex, but it'd be very expensive. We could have a treatment center right there in the same area. So yeah, it'd just make everything a lot better. We'd all be so close to be able to work together.
All we gotta do is find a way to fund it.
Any other questions of the sheriff, please? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda would be Paula, Amy, and Julie, please.
Good morning. I'm Paula Worden. I'm the Director of Community Corrections. We just wanted to stop by and educate for the new members as far as our grant process and how that all flows. We're getting ready to submit the 2019-2020 Indiana Department of Corrections grant application.
And you do this every year?
Every year.
Every year you submit
Yeah.
this grant?
So it's normally due in, well, it used to be due in January, and then we find out we receive a grant award letter. I'm sorry, a grant award letter, late March, early April. This year it's a little later, it's due March 31st, so we'll probably get our grant award probably early May, late April, early May. And then after that, Amy and I will prepare a budget and submit it to council for approval. So right now I will be asking for community corrections, everything, to support everything in pink. I don't know if you want to talk to them a little bit too.
I'm asking for probation. Right now, the grant funds one probation officer and one field officer. So, and that's all I'm asking for, again, is just the funding to provide for those two positions.
Those positions will be funded through this grant then?
Right,
And
I
that's
would
just a
say-
yearly,
Yeah.
Yes.
you get the money for that year, then you have to apply again next year?
Yes.
Yes.
And we have been receiving this funding since 1990.
Okay.
Probation's been receiving it since 2017.
Is it usually about the same amount of grant money?
Well, we just factor in the raises. Now, last year, the DOC did not provide raises for the probation officer or the field officer. So the county general funded the raise for the probation officer because that salary is set by the state. We have to pay them. So the county paid $701, which was her raise. And then the field officer's raise, we funded out of adult probation user fees, which are fees collected by people who are on probation have to pay fees to probation. So we used that funding to pay the raise. Now, I have asked for their full salaries again, but
So the state can deny money for raises, but mandate that we give them a raise.
well, this is Department of Corrections, but yeah, the Office of Courts, two separate entities. One says this is what you have to pay them, DOC says this is what we'll give you to pay them.
And for community corrections, we've been fortunate since 1990 that they would fund the base, like the initial program startup. So our amount has increased. However, then we're responsible for supporting all benefits and pay increases. So at almost 30 years later, our user fee budget, the demands on it is very high, and we are we can't really appropriate any more out of user fees. We're almost at $1 million this year, what we're expecting to collect from our participants to support our program, so I don't think we'll be able to stretch it any further. So I'm asking for a lot more this year than I've ever asked, but I think Whitley County deserves an increase. We've met all their outcomes that they ask, and we have the support of all our stakeholders. We got a 98% on our program audit, so I feel like this is the year to ask. So we're asking for a lot. Includes.
You just verify, their fiscal year differs from.
Oh,
the
yes,
county.
thank you. So I'm glad, thank you
That's
for
why
bringing that.
she's
So
coming
that's,
down.
so that's why I'll get you, as soon as we receive our grant award, we'll present a budget probably April, May, because it starts July 1. So I know you'll do budget hearings, and maybe you'll want me to come back at that time, but I will be coming earlier, as will Amy, just because this grant does start July 1. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, thank you.
This is normal, every year they come and
Yeah,
Next item on the agenda will be Nathan Bilger, please.
it's one of them, let me get the employees, and they can get the money for them. But if they get the money, then it falls back on us.
Good morning, Nathan Bilger, Planning Director. You should have received in your packets several letters of interest. Should have been 7, possibly 8, depending on when the 8th one came in. People interested in the council appointment to the county BZA. As we talked about before, the BZA member who was the council appointment resigned as of December, leaving that seat open. That term goes through the beginning of 2020. So this appointment would fill the remainder of that term until that point. I also handed out a memo this morning in addition to the regular member appointment. Since we have such a large pool of interested people, state law allows for the appointment of an alternate as well, so you may give that some consideration. Per the way this works, the appointing body appoints an alternate for its regular member. So this person would only serve if the regular member would be absent or have to recuse themselves for some reason. They wouldn't be able to serve for any of the commissioner appointments. So with that, I'll answer any questions you may have of me.
If we could, please, I know since we just got this morning, everybody take just 2 minutes and let's read through it and make sure everybody understands. I think this is an important process today. With that document being presented, I would ask council at this time, is council comfortable with the applications that we have received, and have you had a chance to review them, and how would council like to proceed? Are we ready to proceed on this at this time, or are we still in a point to where you guys aren't comfortable with the information as you've been able to digest it?
I've got a question for Nathan. Do you think you need an alternate? Do you think we need to do that?
Not really. Usually the regular members are pretty consistent in attendance, and that's oftentimes where the alternate really comes in, is if somebody is on vacation or is otherwise scheduled to be out, and usually that's not an issue. So I don't think an alternate is absolutely necessary. I just offered that as a choice because we had so many people to pick from.
What does the other council think of the alternate?
I don't think it's a bad idea. I think we had some really great candidates to choose from.
Yep,
And
I agree.
think sometimes if people want to be involved, you want to pick them all.
Okay.
But you can't, so I'm in favor of selecting an alternate.
Okay.
I think it also gives them exposure, and if they'd like to be the primary down the road, then it's a great way for them to be involved.
I have another question regarding the alternate. If the primary were to take a position and then need to resign before the end of the term, do we have to reappoint the primary, or does the alternate automatically complete the term?
The alternate would serve in the capacity that, because there's the regular member can't attend, the alternate could serve that way, but the council should expect to basically appoint them
Appoint that person.
as the regular member.
Is the alternate for one position on the BZA, or is he an alternate for all members?
Only for the regular member that you appoint.
Only for our appointment.
Yeah. It can't, the commissioners appoint the other members, and so it won't serve for them. It has to be the same appointing authority.
I would ask for a straw vote from the council if we're ready to move forward on this.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Sarah Lopez.
What I would like to do is open the floor for nominations. So the first nomination would be Sarah Lopez? Yes.
You need a second for the nomination?
Yes.
I second that.
I have a motion, a second for Sarah Lopez. I would ask for any other nominations.
I would also nominate Sarah Lopez.
Any other nominations? Call for a motion for nominations to be closed.
So move.
So moved.
Second. Nominations are closed, so at this time, we have one person that's been nominated. We will go to the vote. All those in favor of the council's recommendation or council's appointment to be Sarah Lopez, please respond by raising your right hand. And those opposed, the same. Let it be shown it was passed unanimously with all members present.
I think we had some other excellent people who were interested in this, and if we were going to go down the road of an alternate, I think that Kelly Sheese would serve us well. She would be an excellent alternate member.
I'll open the floor for nominations for an alternate to the BZA board.
I'll just make that official, nominate Kelly Sheese as an alternate.
I'll second.
Any other nominations, please? Call for a motion for nominations to be closed.
So moved.
Second.
And I have a second. We'll go to the vote. All those in favor of Kelly Sheese being the alternate, please respond by raising your right hand. And those opposed, the same. Let it be shown that it was passed unanimously with all board members present.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. I appreciate what you're doing. Next item on the agenda is Commissioner Western.
Just a couple things, that we'd like to report yesterday. As you all know, in the fall, Brandon has to submit an application for a community crossings project from the state on some additional road fundings. He put a project together, we're estimated about $1 million worth of, his application was for about $1 million worth of additional funding. The state awarded Whitley County $600,000 plus, between $600,000 and $700,000 on that deal, on that award. And so Brandon set out bids for the material for these projects that he included a community crossing, and most of it was asphalt paving of some roads up around in the lake areas. We got the bids back from six bidders. The bids were 30% higher than the same amount of material a year ago. Made Brandon scratch his head just a little bit because there's road work going on everywhere because of additional funding from the state. Everybody's busy, and this is how the bids came back. So that project cannot be funded 100%. So he's still taking these bids under advisement and reworking through that plan. So that was one thing that we got all reported to us yesterday, you need to be aware of. He'll probably come back in 2 weeks or future commissioner meeting and report how he anticipates handling this. Hopefully, he's hoping he can renegotiate some of those bids, but you're never gonna renegotiate 30% off of them. So, interesting dilemma he has. And the only other thing I have was to bring up the discussion about the human resource assistant. And recommend that we really need this. The commissioners are behind us 100%. And it's going to be your decision. And Don and I are here. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them.
Questions?
I don't really have any question, but they've talked about that for a long time. The commissioners have talked about Angie's overload and also share that person with Jana. And I'm not gonna second guess them. If they think they need it, then I believe them. And I've seen some of it that I know that Angie's overloaded. So, I guess I'd move we approve their request.
Then, just to make sure that I'm clear on what you're saying, you're clear that they're asking for a full-time position, not just to replace the part-time position,
No,
correct?
I understand that.
Okay.
And it'll be, the new person will be sort of part-time and, with Angie and part-time with Jim.
No.
No? Change it, that's what I understood.
And that's why, it's the feeling I was getting, so I wanted to
Yeah,
make sure we were on
yeah.
the same page. Because we've already approved at last month's meeting that the auditor's office retained that full-time employee that was splitting time to work solely at the auditor's office, and that they were kind of using that position then to split time to cover the records division, which was transferred to the auditor's responsibility, and which they had a need for then to use that person that was the full-time employee, splitting time between the two departments to solely work for the auditor to help then cover the records division.
And part of the reason for that records is the extended hours they're open now.
Yeah, that's the man, so we could man the archives full-time, right?
Yeah.
I guess I have a question for the commissioners. Why do you feel you need a second HR person?
Because of the volume of work that she has to do, and it's a tremendous amount of work. I'd also say that I think you have the job description there and the information for WIS, and what we find, we think we really want you to keep in mind is we did not write the job description. WIS wrote the job description. WIS come up with people we hired to do that job. So we believe that it's vital that she gets some help.
I might say additionally, you go out to any business anywhere, you ask them how many employees they have and how many HR people they have. Macropulse people said in here yesterday, I asked them the question, how many employees you got? 350. How many HR people you got? 5. And they're busy all the time. So the state standards is 1 HR person per 80 employees of the workload that's required by the government and everything and the insurance now.
As a new member, could you help me with the acronym you just used? WIS?
No.
Okay.
Irwin Shaley.
Wagner, Irwin.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, Wagner, Irwin, Shaley.
Wagner.
Okay, it's
They're
the,
an HR consulting firm that specializes in public entities and municipalities.
okay.
So they wrote this entire job description. We had absolutely zero input in it. How did they know what our needs were, though?
Well, they, I mean,
They do this all over the state.
I think it's likely that they probably use like a blanket job description for a human resources generalist, right?
And they pulled
I can see that.
surrounding
Yeah.
counties that had similar HR assistant positions. And they did, of course, ask a few questions. But it's not like I said, here's a job description, this is what I want, write it.
Right. How
And-
closely do you feel that this job description matches what you actually need?
For me, it gets tricky because since it's a new position and we have, that position is very moldable because we don't have that position yet, so it could change. But right now, they try to keep it as,
Kind of generic.
yeah, basic as possible, just to assist in any way in regards to HR, but also be available to do those special additional projects that the commissioners may need some full-time guidance on, that someone's here and that the current employees can go to for direction for things like jail task force or something like the income tax or just any, someone to kind of track it internally on a full-time basis.
So to clarify, they would be just maybe fielding a lot of the general questions of constituents when they come in looking for a commissioner. Is that right? So they'd be serving as a coordinator capacity partially, and then helping in human resources in addition?
I believe so.
Now, did WIS also factor this position into what the probable salary range would be?
They factored it based upon their standards, that those guidelines they use to figure out how many points for this particular task or duty. They did not have what we currently pay for those. They took, this job description earns this many points, and then I took those points and just plugged it into what our current wage salary is for those particular categories. Does that make sense?
So there's 3 categories, and this factored in as at the middle range? And it could-
Correct.
if
For a
it's-
PAT, and they're the ones who determined that it was a PAT and not a comment.
Okay.
So
But-
they determined that it was 310, and that does, and there's 4 categories for PAT.
The break-off point is 305?
Yes. The low
So
end.
if this position is approved, if we could approve it at a lower rate than what they recommend?
If you approve it at a 300 or below, my recommendation would be to go back to Wagner, Irwin, Shealy, and say, I don't think you can approve this job description and say, we'll pay you at a lower rate. I think you'd probably want to go back and ask for a revised job description.
We would have to look at this and change it to,
I guess my thoughts are, if it factors in at 310, the break-off point is 305 on it. 5 points is not much in the factoring system that could be changed.
Angela, you're on the cutting edge, you're the one that's dealing with this every day. This affects you, and your opinion is very valuable as far as us making a decision. So when, in your day-to-day activity and the responsibilities that you have, could a differently factored position at a full-time basis help alleviate enough of the work from you to concentrate on human resources and the HR part of it and the other things that you just inevitably are going to have? I mean, I'm sure there's a certain portion of your time that's going to inevitably be for the helping with the commissioners or issues that they have or employee or other issues, department issues. Is that something that if it was factored or offered as maybe something that was factored lower and possibly taking some of those responsibilities out, that would still be beneficial and help you get your job done?
Any help would be beneficial. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, because I'm not going to turn away help. But I think the tricky thing comes to the level of responsibility that you're asking a second person in human resources to undertake, and in regards to those special projects that the commissioners may ask that individual to take on too. And so I think the main difference is going to be in regards to the level of experience and education that will be required for this position and what it's currently factored for. Of course, you can always take less, but then I think you're going to have to decrease the level of education required for that position. And so that's going to be the difference, because yes, you can fill, and this is true for county-wide, you can fill any position with any warm body, but that doesn't mean that you're filling it to the best of your capabilities. But I also don't agree that you just increase the salary just to increase the salary. But I do think that to meet the county's needs adequately, you do want somebody that is a little more educated and has that experience. That doesn't mean that you have to pay them $100,000, but you do want that for everybody's protection from a legal standpoint, from federal, state. I'm kind of pulled all over the place on a daily basis. And so to have someone just to be able to back me up, that kind of, if I can't get to where I need to file this, this, and this by this timeline, because I am dealing with a lot of the human aspects of a job, because it's not black and white in human resources, it's all that gray. You're dealing with a lot of personalities and how you...
So you need somebody that you can give an assignment to and they can go get something done while you're putting out another fire.
Kind of.
Yeah. And I'm sure, well, I'm not sure, I would offer that probably the job that you do for the county and HR job is vastly different than what Councilman Banks' job is in his HR position. And I think that probably all HR jobs, to a certain extent, just like any other job, have their particular in and outs depending on the company or the organization that they work for. And I think probably a lot of what you do, you are very familiar with because of not only having it being a government agency, but the fact that you're working with a lot of different departments, a lot of different elected officials, which can make things challenging. When I say elected officials, I'm not talking about the challenges we give you so much as the ones from the department heads that are elected officials.
Correct.
So with that being said, the position that essentially that you need to help you out with is going to be a learning position for that person being brought into an HR position too, and we're going to kind of, you are going to kind of want to mold and shape them to be proficient in what our needs and responsibilities and duties are. So that would,
Especially if they come with zero county background.
or zero
HR.
experience. But it is possible, and that would be
Yes.
something that would give you a full-time person and maybe start them off at a little bit lower rating, and would still be beneficial to you and would still be something that we could really probably easily support as far as then you training them and then readjusting at some point when they've got to the point to where, you know, this is what they're doing now, and then let's look at moving that up. Is that something, is that a plan that you would see as viable?
I think I'm gonna have to see what the commissioners feel about that as well.
First thing I want to say something, you mentioned Chad, but a lot of the federal, state, local guidelines and insurance guidelines are the same regardless of where you work. If you got employees, you go by these guidelines, so it's not a lot different than what he does. Only thing I have to say, how many new hires we had since the first of the year? That takes half our time.
You know.
And interviews, not only new hires, but interviews.
Are department heads doing interviews?
It depends. Yes and no. This year alone, I've been involved in maybe about 10 interviews. I kind of leave that up to the department head if they want me involved or not. If they want to screen the applicants themselves or they want me involved in that process. So I can't say yes or no because it depends on an individual department basis.
The only other thing we need to think about, this job's gonna require a college degree. Where do you expect somebody with a college degree to start at?
Well, this job, you're right, would. That's why it's factored the way it is.
Pardon me?
I said that's why it's factored the way it
That's why
is.
it's factored it is. It requires a college degree. how low do you want a college, where's a college degree gonna come to work for you at when the job situation is like it is and we're part of the Fort Wayne market? Just throwing that out.
I had a couple of other questions. I tried to determine on the list of duties, how much of it was HR and how much of it was commission or coordinator, business and assistance, and it looks to me like it's about 2/3 HR. Is that accurate?
I would say that's probably 2/3 to 3/4. Depends on the situation, the day.
So if you had an applicant that already met the job requirements, you're going to have to start them at the top of this scale, whatever factor, however we factor them, right?
I would prefer to not start
Okay.
them at the top of the scale,
Yeah.
at least
Right.
not in their introductory.
So if they are going to need significant training, being sent to seminars and other things because of dealing with the laws, how are we going to accommodate the additional training that they have into the salary situation? I think that affects where we start it. A lot of it, I know it probably doesn't work this way, but kind of depends on the candidate.
Yes.
How
But
much-
sometimes, just dealing in county employment, your hands are kind of tied in regards to negotiation on beginning salary. You do have a little bit of flexibility, but no matter what, you couldn't go over the recommended 44,642.
And the higher end, you'd start at the 40,000 like it says.
And even if it was someone that didn't have a significant number of the qualifications, but you saw them easily to develop, they couldn't be hired in lower than that number without refactoring the whole situation.
I would say no.
Okay.
And a lot of times when you're out in different companies that have multiple employees in the human resource department, you're looking at one that may specialize just in the group benefits, one that may specialize in the onboarding and the applicant screening and the background checks. Here, it's one person for everything. And yes, we do have the auditor's office that does handle payroll and does deal with insurance, but still, HR still dealing with the actual enrollment and all of that. They're just dealing with the billing portion of it. So there is still a lot to what I do on a daily basis.
And honestly, that you get all of that done and do anything else, having dealt with employees myself in the past, that can just consume all of your time.
Well, and something that you think is going to be a 30-second phone call ends up taking 2.5 hours.
Well, and having
The
this.
dispute of a workers' comp claim, or
Having to sit in on these meetings. I mean, if you could be over there doing your stuff and somebody else could be helping with this, I mean, that would give you another, by the time we get out of here, 3 hours.
I know we had a meeting with just Star Insurance, just on liability and group benefits. It was a 2.5-hour meeting. We were thinking an hour in and out. 2.5 hours later, we're still in there, which very beneficial and you need to be there to discuss the liability and property insurance and the group benefits, but it's still unprepared.
But a lot of companies have their own HR person that just takes care of the insurance. The other one just takes care of employee benefits.
And just like we did before this position developed, a lot of counties still have department heads take care of those issues.
That's true.
All the HR stuff.
Yes.
And I think, good or bad, that's a direct reflection on why not all county agencies or counties around the state of Indiana have an HR person. So,
But you look at the amount of employees.
yeah,
and
I
it's-
think it's moving that way. I think you're exactly right.
And some
Not-
are even going to a Title 4D, they have an employee that all they deal with is Title 4. It's very unique to see how county governments are changing to become more HR, not necessarily friendly, but taking that portion away from what historically has been the auditor's department and individual department heads, and gearing it towards one separate position.
You gotta remember those offices upstairs are running pretty lean. Most of them don't have near the employees they did 5 years ago. So if those jobs got transferred back to them, they'd be adding staff. If they took over the more of the HR position work.
Well, parts of the HR position, just like you said, you set in on that stuff, but you're not making the decision on who they're going to hire.
No, that's ultimately up to the department.
Right, so they're just using you to help facilitate the process, maybe out of the fact that you're willing to.
No, she gotta make sure they're all legal and qualified.
Well, she does that with every job in the county.
Okay, I guess my point is, I'm in favor of the position on it. I'm just concerned on where the starting salary should be. We've heard pro and con on each direction.
I agree with Councilman Barrett. I think she needs the help. I think we need an additional HR person. I'm just not sure we need to bring someone in at the level that's being requested.
The commissioners feel like there are viable candidates, that we'll have multiple applications for position as it's,
Well,
or do you have to
with the
wait?
college degree is gonna eliminate numerous people from moving up and that already work here. We don't know what's out there. You know what the job market's like. You know, we can't,
So what if in a reasonable amount of time, the position as described now can't be filled? Then do we look for someone with less skills at a lower rate? Or
That
we
is
can
an
t-
option.
so it's an option.
Well, I kind of have to agree with John. Definitely you need help. We took half away from you, so you're going to get half. I feel that you got that coming. I'm not comfortable with the HR part of it yet. I know you need help. I don't have a problem, full-time person. If we could get an HR for a lot less, get it down in the 38, 36, I'd be in favor of it. But I'm afraid of starting them that high and way the percentage of increase in the budget per year per salary. It isn't going to be long till that person's going to be way up there.
So I guess my question is in regards to the current job description that was created. I would like to know where you guys would like to see this needs to be added, this needs to be removed, in your expectations of that job description. Because if that's where the issue is, what would you like to see changed in that description? Because if I go back to Wagner, Irwin, Shealy and say we need to make changes, where do you want to see those changes being made? I will say in the current job 3 category that they placed that description in, there are some benefits to having it ranked at the slightly lower end at a 310. Because that range can go all the way up to 400, so even if you turn around and we add additional job duties to that position, it's gonna be a while before they could ever bump up to the next highest category. And if this job is going to be evolving over the next year to see where it really truly fits in on a day-to-day basis, it does allow you some flexibility to add more job duties to it without it bumping it up into the next level.
That's true. If the system we've got, we describe a job, and that description calls for a pay level. If we want to lower the pay level, we're going to have to lower the expectation.
But it's got one thing to say, we hired this consulting group to do their job. If we're not gonna listen to them,
Well,
Tom, nobody's saying we're not listening to it. We're just not we don't like the particular description. We're not saying we're not listening to them. We made the agreement that we were going to listen to them when we decided to rehire them, when that last consulting company really gave us a report that any one of us could have wrote. So that's not even that question.
What are we gonna do when they come in and refactor the whole county and and it comes back like this or higher?
We'll take out some bonds.
That's when we reassess everything and go from there.
I'm just throwing these things out that we,
Well, you're right, but at the end, not at the end of the day, but evolving through this entire process, this is still the body that has to be responsible to the taxpayers on what they voted us in here to do, and that's look at the financial end of it. And sometimes we get maybe too involved in the financial part of it, and you guys are too involved in the need of it, and that's why we're having these discussions. That's why we come together, and that's why we try to get this worked out. And I think part of that process is evaluating, okay, we're able to accept how this has been factored. We have no problem with that. At least I would say that I don't. No one's trying to, we won't approve this, but say, take this out of it. We can't do that. Okay? No one's saying that. We're saying that we're not sure that needs need to be factored the way they were, and Councilman Barrett, I think, the opening statement was that he's not comfortable with the factor, how this piece of paper was put together. So can we tweak it? And what can we do to tweak it? We were going to have an executive session the other night and work on that, and we didn't. And so now we got a workshop here. Although it's a public meeting, let's, I guess, hammer it out.
but we're having a difference here of $2,000 or $3,000 in opinions, right?
Well,
40 versus 38 or 6 we're talking about. I'm just asking, is that correct?
I think you're brushing over the fact of the importance of $2,000 or $3,000, and it's not $2,000 or $3,000. It's, it's more than that, and it has to do with not only where you start, but how it escalates. And I think Councilman Banks pointed that issue out. So this isn't confrontational. This is a workshop. Let's figure it out.
So do we have a motion on the floor from Bill?
I'm not sure.
Yes.
Well, if you would like to repeat your motion, then, or if it was a motion, why don't we ask Bill? Bill, would you make a motion?
A motion, although I'll make it a motion, if we're gonna expect to not pay what our system tells us to pay, then we're gonna have to lower the expectation. They have to match.
That's a statement.
Yeah, it's a statement, not exactly, since we're just talking. And I wouldn't know quite how to make a motion of that. I'm just saying that we're gonna have to pay for what we get. And if we have to lower our expectations in order to save some money, then if that's what you choose to do, that's what we have to do. But if we want to stick with what the commissioners say, this is what we need, then we need to abide by what we've agreed with to pay that level of expertise.
Well, by straw vote, and for the sake of conversation, is there any councilman present today that are not in favor of being a full-time position? Does anybody see that there's not a need for a full-time position? So we all agree that it should be a full-time position.
I just, my opinion is, just don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. If you're good at $38,000, let's make the change. Let's get the person. That's, I think we're quibbling over $1,000 here, and I think the important part is we need the person. So.
I agree with that too. We're talking about, somebody brought up about the progression of, we're gonna have to follow what we said we were gonna do.
I've been looking at the duties and the job requirements. This is kind of where I've been focused since we originally got the document. And I don't see what can be removed from there unless responsibilities for the commissioners is reduced, or to the commissioners, which just means that Angela does all of that work. Right?
You know, I think there's a lot of things that could fall back on the department heads. I think that we're allowing our department heads to put too much on the shoulders of an HR person, namely recruiting efforts, things like that. I mean, I know that they could lean into HR for job descriptions, but once job descriptions are created, there's really no reason to rewrite them every time we do a search for an employee. Like I hope that we don't recreate the wheel every time we go to do something. And I know that we have, services available that we contract with for benefit enrollment and for things like that. I know that currently the whole payroll department is in the auditor's office, and so, there are things that we could look at maybe redistributing the workload a little bit better. And it sounded to me like a lot of what this additional person would do is field calls and walk-ins, people looking for commissioners, so they would serve more as a county coordinator than they would as an HR person. It's my thought that that's needed because that relieves our HR person of those duties so that they can redirect their focus on human resources. That's my personal opinion.
Chad, could I ask you a question?
Yes.
Okay. Much of her time is new employee orientation. So what you're saying, does she continue to do that? I'm sorry. And the new person not?
I think new hire orientation could fall on our current human resources representative. But with an additional person, she could do that uninterrupted. She wouldn't be fielding calls or anything else. She could just focus on. Yeah.
Let's ask, Angela, I'd like your opinion on that. Is that possible?
Is what possible?
If you had somebody that was in the coordinator's position that essentially was assistant to you and the commissioners, would you be able to focus on just those things and still be able to accomplish most of the HR responsibilities?
I would like to say yes, but you never know until
Yep.
how it.
But if we brought in a position and we factored it as a coordinator or administrative assistant or whatever that, however that would factor out at, that person would be there to be that frontline person, take all the distractions, the 2-hour phone calls away from you, and essentially give you that. So would that be something? So would that be something that would work for you as far as if we approved that kind of a position, and then that position, then if they, it got to a point to where then you saw that, well, there's more HR that I need them to do than what I thought it may, then we could reevaluate it at that point. Could we do that?
But you gotta have somebody that's pretty well qualified.
Well, absolutely, and that's the reason we have a process in place to screen those people.
So
and hire
are
them.
you gonna eliminate your college degree?
I think we need to look at a county coordinator's position or assistant county coordinator or a administrative assistant, because I think a person in that job category could probably perform the tasks to alleviate Angela's time for her to handle the HR stuff. Is that a fair statement, Angela?
I believe so.
How do you see it? Don? Is that something you'd be comfortable with?
I'm pretty comfortable with whatever you come up with.
She needs help.
She needs help, and I don't know how you factor this in, because that's not kind of Chad's area, it's not mine. HR is not my thing, but I want to make sure that this person can at least be brought up to speed in case she decides she's moving on somewhere. So I just want to make sure this person has duties or understands the duties that.
Angela, you plan on leaving us?
No, I think this position needs to be able to assist in HR no matter what, because there's going to be those times that we need somebody else to be able to. Right now, we try to keep new hires only start on the first day of a pay period, which of course is a Sunday, but we usually do Mondays. If for some reason I am not in the office, we can't wait a full 7 days before we do new hire paperwork when that person's been working for a full 37.5 hours. So we need to have somebody that is able to perform those duties. Does that mean that they have to do HR things on every single day that they're here? No, but we do need backup for those specific instances. Or if I am in a meeting and can't get away. You know, I still think that this is truly a moldable position, and I'm not gonna have all the answers right now, but if you guys are willing to approve it and with the understanding that it may be tweaked a little where we find where this new position truly does fit into the county employment overall in regards to commissioners, HR, even auditor, I definitely can see it evolving. That doesn't mean jacking it up in salaries, but evolving to truly fit the needs of everyone involved.
Yeah, and go ahead.
Would everybody be comfortable with approval of the position at a lower rate and be reassessed in 6 months and move it up to the next pat if that then qualifies?
What's the lower rate?
I would say that sticking to the agreement that we made, that we cannot do that. I would be against approving this at any rate lower than what the recommendation is. I don't feel comfortable with that.
You know, another thing we need to keep in consideration, Angie's worked here, and according to our handbook, she's entitled to so much vacation, PT time, all that. We have real issues when that room is closed and locked.
I think we can set it at whatever we want to set it at. We don't have to, if we don't okay this, we can make another thing and say, this is the salary. That's our job.
Well, we're setting a precedent, though, that we're going to do that for every position that comes back, and we're paying this company to factor these positions for us.
We can do it.
I have a suggestion that might potentially allow us to change the job description to a degree that it could become a level 2.
2 or 4?
You mean a 4?
Oh, down, 4, sorry. I start at the bottom.
This is factored in at a level 3?
Yes.
Yes.
And level 4
Or
is the
category.
stage down.
Yes, yes.
The opening paragraph of the job description says incumbent self-service human resources assistant. If we change that to county coordinator's assistant, and then continuing the paragraph, responsible for assisting with coordinating the planning and development, implementation, administration. I think if we drop the words planning and development, this changes the level of responsibility of the position, and that may cause it to factor at a different place. Because planning and development is not administration, it is executive, generally. Does that
Then
make...
have to go back to Sheila to refactor it.
Does that make sense, Chad?
It does make sense. I wonder if council could approve a PAT 4, and you could work within the PAT 4 perimeters and work with WIS and see if you could come up with a job description that fits a PAT 4. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I'm just asking. Is that possible?
I'm sure, I can reach out to Lori and discuss it, and I'm sure that they will, because they really do try to
They work for us.
consider, yes, yes.
They work for us.
Exactly, and they're not gonna say no, but they're going to advise
your helps make it more
legally the
than that.
best option.
Right.
So, you know,
Is that something the rest of the council would feel comfortable with?
I am.
Approving a PAT 4
We have to make
position?
that description fit the salary. I mean,
Yeah?
Yeah, I'd be comfortable with that.
That would give them the help they need.
But
All
everybody,
the while, that person could be training.
are you saying that 33.9?
Angela wants to take vacation. Well, it's a range, 33.9 to 38.
Well, you certainly wouldn't want to bring a higher in at 38.
Well, remember, I would, if, when this comes to a point of a motion, if it does, I would expect that we would, in the motion, indicate that we're going to reevaluate this 6 months after the hire is made as part
And
of
get
the
a
process.
realistic
We commit to
preview of
that.
what this person is doing, and if we need to change the job description, then we can reevaluate whether or not we approve a change.
But
from a
everyone,
3 to 4.
this young lady's help up here in her office is making more than the 33.9.
They're actually all making more than the top of the base of the PAT.
And so you want to bring a college degree in for less than her help's making in the auditor's office?
Depends on the job
For solutions to
description.
bring help.
Pardon me?
I'm only looking for a solution to give her the help that she needs for the
Is that
time.
fair?
Well, I think it is, because we've kind of come to a consensus, and Angela says that she is comfortable with this solution, and I think we are trying to be fair. I guess I would ask you how you feel it's not fair.
Well, I don't think, the secretary's up there in the auditor's office or anywhere, any office, should be making more than somebody with a college degree. Do you? Doing HR work?
I'm not sure that we need to find somebody with a degree. I'm not convinced that that's
I mean, it's in
so
the,
critical.
it's in the job
I know, but
description.
we just discussed maybe changing the job description
Well, whether she got
to
a degree or
match.
not, is it fair to bring them in under what we're already paying our
At
people
this-
upstairs?
At this time, I don't think we're real sure exactly how we'll utilize this person. So if we approve a PAT 4, and then maybe we reevaluate what this person is actually doing after 6 months' time, and if it meets the requirements of a PAT 3, then council could review and potentially approve a change from a PAT 4 to a PAT 3.
Tom, I believe that eventually this position is at least going to evolve to a PAT 4, but I'm not sure that we're ready to commit to that at this point. So if we can get, backwards again, to a PAT 3, but if we can get the position started and reevaluate, that's better than continuing to do nothing, because I don't think we're ready to.
But I'm just concerned the quality you're gonna get for those dollars.
I'd really rather see it at 38,000. That's just me.
Well, I think what we're trying to hammer out here is the PAT 4. And if the range is there for the PAT 4, I don't know that that's our decision on where it starts at, is it? As much as it is who you hire in with what qualifications.
I think if you're going to approve it as a PAT, and I don't think you can approve it as a PAT.
And pay those low wages.
The purpose of the PAT is the requirement of additional formal education. If that's not required, you'll probably want to go to a COMET and have that position kind of level with everyone else county-wide that's at that same level. So it would actually change the overall job category from a PAT, which is professional, to a COMET, which is more office administrative type of.
She's right.
Just throwing this out there. I guess my only concern with approving a lower rate now, which I'm not saying I disagree or agree with, it's obviously completely up to you guys. My concern would be 6 months down the road, say we hired someone with these, with these requirements for education, say we didn't require an education or, a college degree at this point. Let's say 6 months down the road, okay, yeah, we do need a college degree, but we hired someone without one. So what are you gonna do? Are you going to tell that person, hey, you cannot have, you can no longer have this position because now it has different requirements? That would be, I'm just throwing it out there. Just for
In the
thought.
job requirements, it talks about the associate degree in human resources, public management, business administration, or related field or equivalent combination of education or experience. So the person would have the experience without the college education would also qualify, correct?
So if we had somebody down the line that was in that position, they would work into that qualification.
What are your deputies, where are they at?
38.
Why are we comparing the position to the auditor's position?
Well, I'm not, I just picked because she's sitting here.
Well-
We'll go to the other offices.
They're all at home.
They're all the same.
No, they're not. They're not all at 38,000 or higher?
Most
Well,
are, maybe 6 that aren't, and those are being refactored.
You know, you guys proved 2 deputies for her for 6 months, never said a word.
Tom, I feel like you're making this confrontational. We're not trying to be
No, I'm
confrontational
not,
about
but
this.
you're talking about 2,000, we're talking $2,000 here.
We're trying to figure out a way to where we can make it work and get Angela a full-time position in there rather than the part-time position.
For very little pay.
So I'm not pushing one way or the other, but maybe we need to go back to Wagner, Irwin, Shealy and have a different job description created that meets both what the commissioners want and council, and then reevaluate to determine a salary right now at a job description that doesn't meet whatever the.
I think we almost have to do that, and I apologize for that, because that leaves you without somebody for a little bit longer, and again, gives you more work. So how soon can we get this done?
And I can call Wagner, Irwin, Shealy today.
Can we-
But, you know, it still gets tricky because you guys don't meet for another month.
Right.
Well, we can have a
So
meeting.
not-
We can have a meeting. How quick can you have it done? We'll have a special meeting.
I'm
I would
flexible,
say-
you know, I
yeah.
really am, I know. I try to
She's here-
keep everybody happy on a
she's here-
daily basis.
she's here
It's
every day.
difficult.
Is it within council's rules that we can have a special meeting, as long as we advertise it, right? So you get on it,
We'll call Lori today.
you get on it, and as soon as you have everything ready to go, you contact me and Janet, and we'll get a special meeting. Is there any objections to having a special meeting?
No.
We'll even excuse Chad.
He's probably thinking, thank goodness.
Chad, and I don't want, I'll say it wrong if I say it, but I'm gonna let you, where are you gonna be at for the next 3
Well,
weeks?
I'll be in the Philippines and Indonesia for the next 3 weeks, so I won't be in a special meeting. But I do support the full-time position.
And I
do think you
appreciate
need the help.
But I hate to see you guys go through all this when we're only
Full-time
talking.
position is needed, and that would be voted, it's just where it starts at.
And I do understand that. It's just hard when you're dealing with 2 different groups who have 2 different philosophies and ideas. It's just hard to find that gelling point where everybody feels comfortable.
And that's really where the checks and balances come in place, because if everybody here was just on the same page with everything that ever happened, then as a taxpayer, I'd be concerned that there weren't enough checks and balances in place. So I think this is great, because this has been like a workshop today, and we're getting somewhere, we're moving forward.
But I hate to see you guys go through, come to another meeting when we're talking about $2,000 or $3,000.
Oh, don't worry about us, we'll make
So
it.
my question is, if the council, and we're pretty much all in agreement, if they can write the job description to a PAC 4, or however you say it, we would be all in agreement to hire that person?
Yeah, but I appreciated what Angela provided, the information that she provided about the comment versus the PAT, which I wasn't.
Well, and
Aware
I'll
of
make
it.
you copies of this just so you see where our pay scales are for our comment. And kind of, this is an older one, but it's kind of a summary of how specific, what do I want to say, job titles would be found in a comment versus a PAT.
And who makes those up?
Wagner, Irwin, Shealy.
And I appreciate what Angela said too, is the fact that I think we're trying to make a round peg into a square hole, or getting our horse, or cart in front of the horse. Let's go backwards, let's get this done, and then let's approve it, rather than trying to prove something so we don't
Well,
have to.
let's prove something we can all live with,
Yeah.
and get her some help. Quit horsing around the next 2-3 weeks.
That's exactly why I said we'll have a special meeting. All she has to do is have it ready, and we'll give it 48 hours notice from the meeting, and we'll have a meeting.
Well, let's do it right now.
Angela, you ready to do it right now?
Throw something out there that we
Are
can
you-
live with.
Because she's going to Irwin Shealy, and she's going to get it refactored and put together. That's the holding point. That's what we need to do.
That also gives me time to advertise for the additional appropriation as well. If you guys have a special meeting, I can advertise for that, get it ready for you guys. I'll have that salary ordinance amendment. So it actually does benefit, because we don't have the paperwork to approve it today, and I haven't advertised for it because we didn't know an amount for sure. So, having the special meeting does benefit.
It's the council's goal to get this down to PAP 4.
Nope. We're going to go with what Angela works out. Could end up being a comet. Probably will be.
So I ask you, Chad, what do you think we ought to do? Should we finish something today, or should we get it all reevaluated, or what should we do? Where should we go?
I really like the idea of Angela working with Wagner, Irwin, and Shealy to find a way to fit a job description into a pay range that council's willing to work with. So I would strongly stand in favor of her doing that, providing the information to Thor, and then scheduling that special meeting.
So
that would be my recommendation.
We had
Would
a,
be a pay range that you're all comfortable with.
Pay range, yes. The pay range you're all comfortable with, what you're saying.
Yeah, so what would it be a pay that you're comfortable with? I think she needs to know when she goes to Wagner that she's feeling.
I think mid-30s. I think 35 plus or minus is a great place to start, personally.
so we had an executive meeting last week, was closed to the public. We can't have one of
No,
those?
it
where
wasn't
you can't-
executive meeting.
Oh, it wasn't, okay.
We all understood that it was an executive
It
meeting.
never said that anywhere.
Okay. But we still have to, but we just,
So it wasn't going to be an executive meeting?
It never said it was.
Said joint meeting.
It said joint meeting.
okay, so joint meeting, but we can't have a meeting without the public?
Not more than three of us.
If you had an executive session, you couldn't make any decisions.
Oh, okay.
So that it would be, the special meeting would need to be
Okay.
an open meeting.
Okay.
And that's why you have to advertise it 48 hours
Yep.
in advance.
Okay. Is everybody in agreement with Chad, what he gave on a salary length range?
Any other conversation on that?
Yes, I'm in favor.
Yes.
Just one more question. If this becomes not a professional position, but whatever the other, say that for me again.
Comment?
Comment? Theoretically, the pay could come in even higher, couldn't it?
It could.
Okay. Just wanted to know that up front.
But
Then
Angela's
how
got to
do we
work
do-
with them to develop a job
Job
description
description
that would
that-
fit the range that council's comfortable with approving at this time.
And as I looked at the current job description, there were what I would consider some executive things in there that I'm not comfortable, or I don't believe the commissioners or you would be comfortable with that person making those decisions on their own.
So those could be,
Those could be deleted.
Any decision she would make would have to either go through you, Angie, or through the commissioners for approval for it to go forward. Okay?
Okay.
But the position is an assistant,
Right.
not a decision maker.
And it feels like.
so it'd be an assistant coordinator's position or administrative assistant or that,
Well, Angie's
Along
not
that
really a
job.
coordinator, so it'd be the county coordinator's position. She's the HR person. Right or wrong?
a little bit of both, I think.
My job description says both. It is.
So at this time, then, it's been long enough ago, I'm not really sure if there's a motion. Bill, I'm not really sure what you had. Do you want to withdraw what you had?
That really wasn't a motion, that was.
And I didn't think that it was
pointed out.
either, yes. So I didn't consider it as a motion, so then we will not revisit you withdrawing it. We will just come back to where we're at right now. So we do have this issue, and we've come to a consensus on how it was to be handled. I would like to hear that in the form of a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we table this until our county HR director has time to work with Wagner, Irwin, and Shealy to develop a job description that matches a pay range that we feel comfortable with.
accept that motion, I'd ask for a second.
Second.
And they do have a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor of tabling it, please respond by raising your right hand. And those opposed, the same, and let it be shown as passed unanimously with all board members present.
This is your pay scales for your
Thank you.
comments, and then the back, the second sheet has kind of a summary of what a typical job category
Thank
would
you.
have, and a comment job category.
And how many employees does the county have?
Approximately 247.
Approximately.
Before the meeting started, right?
Two.
Okay, moving forward, and I apologize, Todd, please come forward. I almost went out of order and had you come up previous to that, but you got to set through it, so congratulations on that. If you could, please just introduce yourself and who you represent.
My name is Todd Geiger. I am the 4-H Youth Development Educator with Purdue Extension here in the county. Just got a quick handout, because I don't have to read everything. Just going to hit on a couple key things. Just wanted to come in today and just give you just kind of a brief update of what's going on with our 4-H program over the past year.
Thank you.
And different things that we're doing in terms of new programming, traditional program.
Todd, you just got a big boost nationally this morning for 4-H. I happened to be watching the news, the two little girls that got lost out in California.
Yep.
And that she saved herself because of what she learned in 4-H.
I had heard that story, yes. That was awesome. So, just to give you a brief overview of 4-H, our 4-H program here in Whitley County. Our traditional program is open to youth that are in 3rd grade through seniors in high school. We also, in Whitley County, have a mini 4-H program that's kindergarten through 2nd grade. That's really not standard across Indiana or across the country. Some counties offer a mini 4-H program, some don't. Some call it Clover Buds, and it only includes 1st and 2nd grade, but ours does include kindergarten through 2nd grade. Most of our 4-Hers are right here in the county, but something that's kind of been on the grow, especially the last 3 years, is a number of youth that we have coming to the county for our 4-H program. Last year's numbers were over 120 kids that were coming to us from outside county lines to be a part of our 4-H program, which is neat for us. Sometimes makes relations with other 4-H educators a little tense when they hear how many kids they got leaving the county to come here. So this past year, in 2018, we had a total of 811 kids that were a part of our 4-H program. That's an increase of 41 kids from the year previous. Just to give you a little bit of history, when I came on board in 2016, we had 740 kids in our 4-H program at that time. So we are on the grow, which is awesome. There's not too many counties in the state that their 4-H program is currently growing. Most of them are on the decline. 692 of those kids were our traditional 4-Hers, so 3rd grade through 12th grade. We had 119 kids that were a part of that mini program, that kindergarten through 2nd grade. Our enrollment numbers today, well, actually yesterday, are at 768. So we're getting close to that 811 already. That 811 number wasn't taken till about the end of June last year. So if things are going the way they have in the past, we'll exceed that 811 number this year. Part of that's kind of shocking. Our mini 4-H numbers have finally turned back around. We were on a serious decline. 9 years ago, our mini 4-H numbers were over 200. They had slipped. My first year, we were right around 101 kids in minis. So we finally turned that back around. We were kind of stagnant at about that 110, 112 mark. As of yesterday, we have 139 kids in our mini 4-H program, and that seems to grow every month. Our mini leaders, we have 5 ladies that work with those mini kids on a monthly basis. They do a monthly workshop with hands-on activities for the kids. And the average each month seems like we enroll anywhere from 5 to 12 kids each month in that mini program. So I'll skip over a little bit of that. You're welcome to breeze through that later on. It just talks about our clubs, different types of clubs that we have, our adult volunteers. Do want to touch on one new program that we started last year called our Mini 4-H Livestock Mentor Program. To get our mini kids that experience with our livestock projects. 15, 20 years ago, that was the norm. Livestock projects were 4-H, that was the main focus. With today's generation of kids, there's less and less kids coming from rural areas, even though Whitley County is a very rural county with a big ag background and a big ag history. Very few kids that are going to school today come from a farm that has livestock. So livestock numbers across the state, across the nation are dropping drastically. But to get our mini kids that exposure to that program, we started this mini 4-H livestock mentor program where we partner those kids with an older 4-H'er that is in a particular species. And then we have those kids visit that older mentor and their family at least 3 times before the fair, so they get to go out, visit the animal, learn about where it lives, what it sleeps on, what it eats, what it drinks, and all that. How the kids work with the animals. And we had a total of 56 of our 119 mini kids that were a part of that program, which was amazing in its first year. This year, I think we're going to way exceed that number. Parents loved it, the kids loved it, and our mentors, the older 4-H'ers that were a part of that, loved it. It kind of gave them kind of a platform to really share their project and what they loved there. So on the next page, we do have a whole new non-traditional part to 4-H, and that would be the part that doesn't show up the week of fair. So when you go to the fair and you look at all the projects, this new part of 4-H may not have an exhibit there. These are connecting with kids that in the past have never seen themselves as 4-H'ers because they still felt 4-H was agriculture, it was livestock, and they don't have the opportunity, maybe due to where they live or whatever, to be involved in those. So we look at different areas to make that connection with youth that we typically had not been making an impact with. So there's kind of a list there of some different workshops that we put on. We call them Spark Clubs. So we did a remote control car group. We have a lady that comes in and does a junior chef academy with kids. We've just started a bowling clinic this month. We have kids coming to Main Bowl, and we got a couple guys in there that are teaching them different techniques and strategies to become better bowlers. We got 2 robotics groups going on. A new one that we're hoping to get off the ground this spring is a dog rally workshop. So not quite agility, but it's kind of in between the world of agility with dogs, but more advanced than just dog obedience. So, and then 2 new ones that I'll talk briefly at the end, are Creators and Explorers and Makers Fair. That is all hands-on STEM activities with youth. Our Creators and Explorers are with the younger kids, 1st grade through 3rd grade. Our Makers Fair is for our 4th and 5th grade. We launched both of those up at Northern Heights Elementary using our STEM Connection team. Our STEM Connection team is something that I started 2 years ago, where I took a group of our high school 4-H'ers that had a passion in STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. They love doing hands-on stuff, exploring that world, and developing cool activities to take out, particularly to elementary kids. So Northern Heights, I'd met with the principal there, and he's like, we really need an after-school program. Is there anything that you offer? And I said, I think I can come up with something that you guys will really like. So we came up, I talked with our STEM team. We got 8 kids currently on that team. They loved the idea, said absolutely. I talked to the high school principals because those kids would have to get out of school about an hour early to get there. They loved it because the kids actually lead everything. I'm just the supply guy when we go. They tell me they need paper towel or they need more water or food coloring or whatever we're doing. I'm that guy. So we've been going out there. We got 2 more sessions with them. That's been amazing. Our younger group is all doing food science and engineering, and our older group is all based around technology and robotics. We have a total between the two, we got 31 kids that are a part of that after-school program. Of those 31, 29 are brand new to 4-H. They've never done anything with 4-H before, have never seen 4-H as something that they could even get involved in. So that's been really cool. The next part, I'll kind of breeze through. I put in some numbers in there for you for our top livestock and non-livestock projects this past summer and where those are trending. I think this was probably the first time, maybe in forever, that swine is no longer our biggest livestock project in terms of the number of kids in the project. I don't think that's any secret. That's kind of just economics for you. If you look at what the industry is on market price of a hog and then what it costs to buy a show animal, to pay for high-end genetics, and then on top of that to pay the high-end cost of show feed, it just doesn't make sense for parents anymore. So that trends, you'll see ups and downs in all of those. I just talked with our livestock leaders 2 weeks ago. I gave them a whole printout of where we were from 2015 until today in terms of numbers of kids in their project. So if you break all the species apart, you take cattle and break all the different cattle species really apart, from feeder calves to junior beef to dairy cattle to dairy steers and all that. We have a total of 13 animal projects altogether. Of those 13, believe it or not, 6 are still on the grow. We're still going up in numbers every year. That is totally unheard of in the state of Indiana and across the country. They're not. They're on a serious decline. Our dairy project is still on the grow. That one, I have no idea why. If you look at what's going on in the dairy industry, there's 5 counties in Indiana alone that will lose the dairy project altogether this year. There's no kids in dairy because of what's going on with the dairy market. So I know that was a lot, a real short amount of time. Third page just goes on and explains a little bit more about our 4-H STEM Connection program. Just this past year, that group has made it into 5 different schools in the county, and total we worked with over 1,200 youth in 2018. So, it's good. Any questions for me?
Todd, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good job, Todd. Keep it up.
Next item is the Commissioner's report. I assume that was part of what you gave us earlier when you spoke, or did you have anything further?
No, I don't have anything further. If anybody has any questions of anything else?
Okay, then that brings us to 2 sets of minutes. The first set of minutes that I would ask for a motion to approve on would be the joint session that we had with the Commissioners of February 27th, 2019. Has everyone had a chance to review those minutes? And if so, I would ask if a motion would be made as they were presented.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the meeting minutes for our Commissioner Council joint meeting as presented.
Second. Go ahead. Bill, over here with the second, please. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor of approving those minutes, please respond by raising your right hand. And all those opposed, the same, and we have one abstention with Councilman Barrett. Everybody else approved them unanimously. And then that will bring us to our minutes from February 5th, 2019. Has everyone had a chance to review those minutes? And if so, I'd ask for a motion, please.
So moved.
We have a motion to approve as presented. A second?
Second.
Councilman Warner with the second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor, please respond by raising your right hand.
One abstention.
And opposed, the same, with Councilman Barrett abstaining. The only other thing I had in my packet then, I guess, is this informational on the technology and contract services.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Yes, can I bring this up?
Yep. I still have it in my packet. It wasn't on the agenda, but we will certainly listen to you if you, yep.
I was sitting there thinking, especially when Mark was here, why aren't we talking about this, you know? Thor, you can probably explain to these guys easier about the part where we have to walk prisoners to the, from the jail to the courthouse. And it is in a ways a pretty picture because especially like around election time when people are voting up there, they get real scared when they see all these people. Plus it's, and I'm sorry, I wish we had the sheriff here, there's a tremendous amount of time on the deputies to walk these people back and forth. So here's what I find interesting about this. As commissioners, we sort of suggested doing this a few years ago, the judges said no. Okay, so the judges now say yes. What the judges...
We got new judges.
Yeah, we got new judges. What the judges are looking for is $59,000 out of fume cap, or wherever you want to find it, so that these prisoners never leave the jail. They can talk to the court through this video system. Nobody has to take these guys out of jail, they just stay right there, and I don't know the technicalities. Please, I don't know the technicality, but I do know, and you've probably all seen it too, watching these guys get shuffled across the street in their orange uniforms and their flip-flops, and it's just, so the commissioners did vote 3-0 to request a favorable pass from the council to fund the program. So does everybody have this? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Don, is this the only company to work with, or is this the only people we talk to?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I do not have an answer.
Because when I see a price of $59,000, it doesn't mean anything to me, because I don't know how much this should cost, but when I see a bid of $59,000 and all zeros, it makes me want to see a second bid. Is that possible?
Why don't you? I sure don't know why not.
I think the idea is great, and I think not only from everything that you said, but I think that it also could be used to maybe eventually have initial hearings every day, which maybe might help alleviate some of the people that are in jail from a Tuesday all the way to the next Monday, waiting for an initial hearing. So I think there's several, I don't see a downside to it, I just kind of wonder on the cost of it. And I guess my next question would be, where can this money come from for this project? I mean, is it something that can come out of commissary? Is it something that can come out of general budget? Does it have to come out of cum cap? Where all could this come from to fund this project?
I think that's your answer.
I think you made in your motion, you added that it could be paid out of cum capital development, correct, in the minutes?
Our favorable pass was to bring it out of cum cap, and hey, that's
Right.
your
It
decision.
could come from there or the general fund.
Of
There's
course.
enough money.
And I don't believe, I could be wrong, but I thought this was being investigated by the judges, not the sheriff.
Oh, okay.
I think this has been coming from Judge Fallen.
No, I'm sorry.
I could be
This
wrong,
came
but-
from, it came from the judges.
Yes.
That's why I laughed, because a few years ago, they didn't want any
Well,
part
that's
of
why
this,
I
so.
said we got new ones.
And Preferred IT has been heavily involved in this,
So
from
it's-
an IT side and things like that.
So what you're saying is it wouldn't be necessarily be fair to make the sheriff pay for this when he doesn't, when it's something was coming from another direction?
Judicial side.
Kim,
I could be wrong, but-
4 or 5 years ago, didn't we approve a very similar project as this? And my understanding that it was a failure because of they couldn't get the electronics going from the jail to the courthouse. Does that sound right?
Well, I know we approved some, I was gonna ask Don, because it was supposed to be that if somebody was down in Anderson and they were supposed to come up here and be in court that day, you could actually do it through this system.
That system's in place.
It is in
So we don't
place.
have, so we don't have to send a deputy to Pendleton to bring somebody back.
That's through the state.
That system is in place.
VOC.
What the judges at that time, though, they didn't like this idea of not bringing them over and seeing them face to face. from the jail. So
Yeah, you're right, I was on the council when you did that.
So
This is a different system.
This
yeah,
is for
yeah,
the
it's a different
local.
system.
So they're comfortable now by doing it through video other than face-to-face.
Yeah, they must be.
But you remember, it's 2 new judges.
This came from George, so.
And also, if that was to be, I wouldn't like to see it come out of Cume Cap. I'd either like to see it come out of CEDA or someplace like that. Cume Cap is basically for repaired buildings and that kind of.
Our general fund can stand it, yeah.
I'd
like that,
I'd like to
Cume
see
Cap.
this bid just broke down. I mean, it says 1 video interface, 13 cameras, 3 monitors, and then, but, I mean, can they break that down and tell us how much those items are? And then maybe that 59,000 would make more sense to me, but when you have a list of all that stuff like that, and then $59,000, I'd just like a little more information on it.
And I think while we're asking for more information, I would want to know more about the continuing service agreement, whether or not that'd be a requirement, because it looks like there could be potentially an annual fee.
All good ideas, guys, all good ideas.
And this is a great idea, and this is something that, without question, I would be in favor of. It's just a matter of being comfortable with the details.
I'm in agreement with Thor on it, that working courthouse security, having the inmates there during election periods on it, made our voters, constituents very uneasy.
Very, yeah.
And there was
We got
not,
calls.
yeah, and there was not a lot, what I would call up-close security with the pretrial services, pretrial conferences and going like that. So, as Thor said, I'm in agreement with this, just a matter of how to get it paid for and what we're paying for.
I agree, we did lose a
If
prisoner.
you
that
haven't
way
done
one time.
so, I suggest you move to page 2. I just saw it. Look at responsibilities. So $59,000 would not be $59,000.
Last commissioners meeting, when this was initially brought up, I think Tony Helfert was here. And on that day
He was.
alone, they had 4 officers that all they were doing was
Shuttling prisoners.
yes, and so that meant that there were no officers out actually
On a Monday.
in the county if there was an emergency or something like that, because they were all assigned to
Yeah.
this transfer.
And on occasions, the deputies would bring as many as 8 people chained together on it, and if the 8 people decided to overpower that particular deputy on it, it would be fairly reasonable.
I think we did lose a prisoner one time.
We have lost more than one.
And Don, that's a great point, because you look at all those responsibilities, there's a price tag associated with all that. And I think it would be fair to provide what the estimated costs were gonna be for that end of it also.
Yeah, I totally agree, Joe. I think we need to go. I think it's a great idea. I just don't think we have enough information, and we don't have multiple bids.
Yeah.
So,
You know, we don't need to decide where to take it from until we actually do something, but I'd be in favor of taking it out of the general fund rather than deplete the Cume Cap.
Then that would definitely be something that we need to address when we get
Yeah.
that final price tag. That's a very good point.
so how about we table this thing and let us go back and get more information?
That would be great, thank you.
I like it myself.
Yep. Councilman Beck.
I have nothing, although I had a very good vacation in Florida.
Yeah, and we're glad you did. Councilman Overdeer,
I had a good time in Florida too.
Councilman Comfort, Councilman Warner,
Nothing.
Councilman Ward,
Nothing.
Vice Chair Banks.
I was fortunate enough to sit through the commissioners' meeting yesterday, and there was a presentation from DLZ that I think everyone got a copy of. I thought it was very informative. I thought it was great information. And what I liked about this presentation, as opposed to the ones that we received last week, is there are actually some numbers here, some ideas on how much things are going to cost and some other possible solutions rather than jumping right into a jail tax and building a new complex. So I was in that meeting, so if you have questions when you're digging through this, I can answer, and I think the commissioners could answer as well.
And it'll also be on YouTube. YouTube.
That's right. Yeah, you can watch the video.
Okay, so where do you find those on YouTube? I tried to watch the commissioners' meeting yesterday.
Whitley County Government, I think.
Oh, it's not
I don't- I
live.
haven't-
It wouldn't be on there yet.
It's not live, it's about from what I can experience, about 2 weeks delay.
Oh, okay.
No,
Usually do it, I do
that's
it
all
within
up
a
to
couple
her.
days. I do it within a couple days.
Yep. I've seen it on there as fast as the next day before.
Trying to watch the council meeting I was in, and it did not.
Actually,
That may not have been recorded.
yeah, the computer actually crashed, I think, for the council meeting, so it was never recorded because of the
Don't go
computer.
back to Florida. Stay here and have the meetings.
I just can't hear you.
I'm gonna go to Florida next week and take you guys' place.
Okay.
Anything else for the good of the cause? Meeting is adjourned. Yeah, it was. That was a very good meeting.
Take care of yourself, okay?
Don, good luck down Florida.
Yes.
Yeah, I know it's
Did
gonna
you
be.
take notes?